In this video, I'll explain the beginnings of humanity and how our ancestors lived during early and prehistoric times. You'll learn how they developed tools, fire, and the first villages, leading up to the invention of writing and the beginning of the Iron Age. Prehistory began millions of years ago with the first human-like beings. These ancestors, called hominids, lived in Africa. They didn't look like us yet and fed on plants and animals. Over time, they became smarter. Around 2.5 million years ago, humans began making tools from stone. They used sharp stones to cut meat or shape wood. This helped them hunt and survive. This era is called the Paleolithic Age. In addition to stone, they also used bones to make tools. Bones were turned into needles for sewing or hooks for fishing. Bones were easier to shape than stone. This shows how clever they already were. About 1.5 million years ago, humans learned to make fire. It kept them warm, protected them from animals, and improved their food. At night, it gave them light and a place to share stories. Fire was a huge step forward. Fireplaces became the center of their lives. They cooked there, kept warm, and gathered together. It made the nights safer and more comfortable. Without fire, life would have been much harder. In early history, people lived as hunters and gatherers. They moved around, hunted animals, and collected berries or roots. They didn't have permanent homes, but slept in caves or under trees. Their lives depended on nature. Over time, they became better hunters. They made spears with sharp tips or set traps. Often they hunted in groups to catch big animals like mammoths. This way, there was enough food for everyone. As it got colder, they began making clothes from animal hides. They used stone needles to sew the hides together. This allowed them to survive in cold places like Europe. Without clothes, they would have frozen. In the Paleolithic Age, caves were like houses. They protected people from rain, cold, and wild animals. They were also used for art or rituals. Today, caves like Lascaux are famous. About 40,000 years ago, people painted images on cave walls. They drew animals like mammoths or bison and hunting scenes. Using colors from earth and plants, they created real artworks. We can still see them today. Thousands of years ago, the Earth was much colder. This was the Ice Age. Large parts of the world were covered in ice. People had to adapt to survive the cold. Animals like the woolly mammoth were their prey. Eventually, people began to speak. At first, they used sounds and gestures. Later, these became words and sentences. This helped them make plans and tell stories. People lived in small family groups. Parents, children, and grandparents helped each other survive. They shared food and tasks like hunting or making fire. Together, they were stronger. Early on, people made music, like with flutes made of bone. They also beat on drums made from animal skins. Music may have been part of celebrations or rituals. It was fun and brought the group together. Sometimes people celebrated, like after a successful hunt. They danced, sang, or held ceremonies for their gods. This united the group and gave them courage. Rituals were very important. Around 12,000 years ago, some people started settling in one place. They built small villages and stopped moving around. This happened because they learned to grow plants and keep animals. This period is called the Neolithic Age. In the Neolithic Age, people planted crops like wheat and barley. They worked hard to prepare fields and harvest. This gave them steady food, even when hunting failed. It was the start of agriculture. They tamed animals like sheep, goats, and cows. These animals gave milk, meat, and wool. Later, they helped with work like plowing. This made life easier. In villages, they built houses from clay, wood, or stone. The roofs were made from straw or branches. These houses protected them from wind, rain, and animals. At last, they had a permanent place to live. People learned to shape clay and fire it. That's how they made pots and bowls. They could cook or store food in them. Pottery was a big step forward. Many settled near rivers or lakes. Water was needed for drinking, cooking, and fishing. It also attracted animals they could hunt. Life by water was easier. They built simple boats from wood or reeds. With these, they crossed rivers or went fishing. Later, they used boats to discover new places. This was the beginning of water travel. People traded goods like grain for tools. Some traveled far to get special things like shells. This spread ideas from village to village. It was the start of trade. Around 5,500 years ago, they invented the wheel. At first, it was for carts, later for wagons pulled by animals. The wheel made transport faster and easier. It was a brilliant invention. About 5,000 years ago, they learned to make metals like copper or bronze. This is called the Bronze Age. Tools and weapons made of metal were much stronger than stone. This helped with building and fighting. Villages turned into large cities with thousands of people. This happened, for example, in Mesopotamia, today's Iraq. Cities had markets, temples, and roads. Life became more complex. Around 5,000 years ago, they started writing symbols. At first, they were pictures, later letters. Writing allowed them to record trade or stories. This marked the beginning of history. People believed in gods for the sun, moon, or storms. They built temples and offered food or animals. Gods explained why things happened. Religion was a big part of life. As cities grew, conflicts arose over land or food. People made weapons and fought each other. Some cities built walls for protection. Wars became normal. Around 3,000 years ago, the Iron Age began. People learned to forge iron, which was harder and cheaper than bronze. Weapons and tools became even better. This made cities and armies stronger.